Russia because JD Vance has no friends in Vermont, but he's got lots of them in Russia, so he should go there for vacation.
This country's in a lot of trouble right now.
Those were the sentiments echoed by hundreds of protesters who lined the roads near Sugar Bush Resort in Warren, Vermont, in the United States. They heckled U.S. Vice President JD Vance, calling him Putin's puppet, while Vance and his family were reportedly skiing in Vermont. The protesters were angry and they accused Vance of siding with Russia. Many also carried pro-Ukraine signs, while others waved Palestinian flags and banners advocating for immigrant rights.
Our democracy is at risk, and we have people who don't care about people.
This country's in a lot of trouble right now, and we can't keep going down this route.
But there was also some support for Vance.
We wanted to give him a positive welcome rally of support of Vermonters and the process and the things that him and President Trump are doing for our great country.
When we saw that there's 3 protests, we thought, well, we better have a little welcoming committee come out and just at least show our support.
The protests were planned in advance, but intensified just a day after Vance's heated exchange with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky at the Oval Office in Washington, D.C., United States.
I've actually watched and seen the story.
The meeting started on a good note, with handshakes and smiles between the two leaders, U.S. President Donald Trump and Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky. But after half an hour into it, the discussion descended into full chaos, when Vice President JD Vance interjected to answer a question about Trump's support for Russia.
You should be thanking the president for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine? Did you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Come once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President.
God bless. You will not have war.
As tempers flared, Vance told Zelensky he was being disrespectful to Trump.
But if you
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come to the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are.
Vance also blamed the Ukrainian leader for failing to acknowledge U.S. financial aid and dismissed concerns about Russia's trustworthiness.
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come to the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the president for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine? Did you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Come once.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military? And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
But this wasn't an isolated incident when Vance was being outspoken. In February, Vance rebuked European leaders about the state of democracy and free speech in their countries at the Munich Security Conference. Later, he also questioned British Prime Minister Keir Starmer at a White House meeting. Now, Vance's comments on the 28th of February highlight the role he has been given by Trump to amplify the president's style and approach to diplomacy.
David Vance, do solemnly swear.
So, who is JD Vance, and how has he reinvented himself in U.S. politics? Has he been playing the role of Trump's wingman in the current incident? All these and more on WION Wideangle this week.
I, James David Vance, do solemnly swear
I, James David Vance, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution.
JD Vance, a former Ohio senator and best-selling author, is now the Vice President of the United States.
Duties of the office. The duties of the office. Congratulations, Mr. Vice President.
At 40 years old, he is the third youngest Vice President in U.S. history, and could be a potential frontrunner for the Republican nomination in 2028. Vance's political rise has been rapid. Born in Ohio, Vance served in the U.S. Marine Corps before attending Yale Law School and working in Silicon Valley. His memoir, Hillbilly Elegy, brought him national recognition. The book talks about young Vance growing up in poverty and his struggles in the culture of violence and drug addiction. The book also talks about his troubled relationship with his mother.
Our movement is about single moms like mine, who struggled with money and addiction, but never gave up. And I'm proud to say that tonight my mom is here, 10 years clean and sober. I love you, Mom.
Here is a quote from the book. Mom equated money with affection, but I never cared about the money. I just wanted her to be healthy. His book remains one of the main reasons voters in Ohio embraced him as their senator. While attending Yale Law School, Vance met Usha Chilakuri. A child of Indian immigrants, Usha was born and raised in the suburbs of San Diego. The couple married in 2014 and later had 3 children. While Vance might have the perfect resume, his better half makes it even better. Of all the people, she has managed to humble Donald Trump by her achievements. Vance is also a hit among Americans because of his family man image. Before he took over as the vice president, Vance made waves online with a photograph of him and his in-laws. The Republican leader had been criticized for his stand on racism in the past. JD Vance was seen in a photo with his wife, Usha Vance's Indian family, reportedly at a family Thanksgiving dinner. In another incident, Vance shared a video on X where he can be seen baking cookies with his daughter last Christmas. He captioned the video, "Baking some Vance family biscuits with the world's best 3-year-old sous chef."
Into the flour?
How about we just put them in this?
Well, how could be some sugary biscuits, right? Do you like sugary biscuits?
Just 8 years ago, in the lead up to the 2016 presidential election, JD Vance was a biting critic of Donald Trump. The Ohio senator has called Trump a lot of names. Idiot, a moral disaster, America's Hitler. Cut to 2022, Vance began to profess a change of heart and mind about the leader of his party as he prepared his initial run for office. Trump also started to see Vance more as an ally after his efforts to endorse the political movement Make America Great Again. The senator displayed his loyalty by standing at Trump's side at a New York courthouse during his criminal hush money trial. And then, when the former president tapped Vance as his running mate, Vance became one of Trump's most ardent champions, standing by his side even when other Republicans declined to do so. Since aligning with Trump, Vance has become known for his approach on the campaign trail, fiercely attacking the opposition. His views on immigration and women's rights have drawn sharp criticism. Vance has also been a vocal opponent of foreign aid, opposing legislation to send more aid from the US to Ukraine amid Russia's war. JD Vance may hold the same title as past vice presidents, but his political trajectory and his role in the Trump administration sets him apart. Unlike his predecessors, Vance has not been assigned a specific portfolio in the White House. At 40 years old, he is the third youngest vice president in history. While past VPs like Kamala Harris and Mike Pence took on policy initiatives or crisis management, Vance's role has largely been diplomatic, representing the US at international conferences. Recently, he was a part of the AI Action Summit in Paris. His position also differs in one critical way: his loyalty to Trump. Former Vice President Mike Pence distanced himself from Trump after refusing to overturn the 2020 election result, effectively ending his political future. Vance, in contrast, has remained a steadfast supporter. This loyalty, however, was tested when Vance suggested that not all January 6 rioters should be pardoned. He faced immediate backlash from Trump's base. JD Vance is also more popular than other VPs among the masses. JD Vance may be Donald Trump's vice president, but when it comes to foreign policy, the two men take very different approaches. While Trump is known as a deal-maker who thrives on negotiation and unpredictability, Vance takes a much more rigid stance. Donald Trump built his presidency and his political brand on being a deal-maker, be it talking directly with North Korea's Kim Jong-un, renegotiating trade deals with China, or pressuring NATO allies to pay more for defense. Trump has always treated foreign policy like a business deal, one that should benefit the US first. On the other hand, JD Vance is part of a stream of Republicans arguing for a hands-off approach to foreign policy. That policy prioritizes US interests, is suspicious about its military intervention, and questions the US's long-standing approach to global alliances. Vance has been vocal about being against the US providing funds to Ukraine amid the war with Russia. However, in a recent interview, he said that giving the US economic interest in Ukraine is itself a security guarantee.
If you want real security guarantees, if you want to actually ensure that Vladimir Putin does not invade Ukraine again, the very best security guarantee is to give Americans economic upside in the future of Ukraine.
While Vance has a nationalist approach, this approach also has its limits. Vance has been in favor of sending aid to Israel in its fight against Hamas. When Hamas carried out its attack on October 7, 2023, Vance pinned the blame on the Biden administration for enabling the Palestinian group. On the 14th of February, at the Munich Security Conference, US Vice President JD Vance vented at European leaders, telling them the biggest threat to their security was from within, rather than China and Russia. He used his first major speech as vice president to criticize European politicians, claiming they are suppressing free speech.
The threat that I worry the most about vis-a-vis Europe is not Russia, it's not China, it's not any other external actor. And what I worry about is the threat from within, the retreat of Europe from some of its most fundamental values, values shared with the United States of America. What German democracy, what no democracy, American, German, or European, will survive is telling millions of voters that their thoughts and concerns, their aspirations, their pleas for relief are invalid or unworthy of even being considered.
The audience at the conference expected Vance to use his speech to address possible talks to end the war in Ukraine. Instead, they were treated to a rejection of liberal orthodoxies that have prevailed in Western Europe since the Second World War, in a speech that downplayed the threats to the continent posed by Russia and China. The address was met by silence in the hall and later denounced by several politicians at the conference. German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius said it was not acceptable.
He spoke of the annihilation of democracy, and if I understood him correctly, he compared conditions in parts of Europe with those in authoritarian regimes. Ladies and gentlemen, that is not acceptable.
Meine Damen und Herren, das ist nicht akzeptabel.
During his US visit, UK's Prime Minister Keir Starmer clashed with JD Vance over the latter's claims that Britain's stance on freedom of speech is stifling American companies and citizens. Vance sat across from Starmer in a meeting with President Donald Trump and told reporters that the special relationship between the UK and US mattered, but issued a warning about perceived overbearing tech regulation.
Look, I said what I said, which is that we do have, of course, a special relationship with our friends in the UK and also with some of our European allies, but we also know that there have been infringements on free speech that actually affect not just the British, of course, what the British do in their own country is up to them, but also affect American technology companies and by extension American citizens. So that is something that we'll talk about today at lunch. Thank you.
Starmer, leaning forward in his seat, issued a retort to the Vice President.
We've had free speech for a very, very long time in the United Kingdom, and it will last for a very, very long time. Well, no, I mean, certainly we wouldn't want to reach across US citizens, and we don't, and that's absolutely right. But in relation to free speech in the UK, I'm very proud of our history there.
This comes amid a fierce transatlantic debate about tech regulation, with the US urging the UK and EU to ease up on rules governing AI and social media platforms. Among the series of high-profile events that have drawn both criticism and support for the US Vice President, the most notable incident occurred during a meeting at the White House with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. The discussions turned contentious, with President Trump accusing Zelensky of risking global conflict. Vice President Vance's remarks during this meeting reportedly intensified the situation. Ukraine's president had been hoping to leave the White House after positive talks with Donald Trump, capped with the signing of a minerals deal giving the US a real stake in his country's future, if not an outright security guarantee. Instead, Volodymyr Zelensky faced an extraordinary dressing down in front of the world's media after President Trump and his vice president demanded that he show more gratitude for years of US support.
You should be thanking the president for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
The Ukrainian president pushed back at suggestions from his more powerful partners that he should work harder to agree to a ceasefire with Vladimir Putin. They responded that he was being disrespectful.
We're going to feel very good. We're going to feel very good and very strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. Right now, you don't. You're playing cards. You're playing cards. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country, that's backed you far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Have you said thank you once? This entire meeting? No, in this entire meeting, have you said thank you? You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some words of appreciation for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
Please, you think that if you will speak very loudly about the war, you can...
He's not speaking loudly. He's not speaking loudly. Your country's in big trouble.
Can I answer?
Wait a minute. No, you've done a lot of talking. Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You're not winning. You're not winning this. You have a damn good chance of coming out okay because of us.
Mr. President, we are staying.
Vance's remarkable attack on a visiting head of state is not typical for an American vice president.
I think this visit was very poorly prepared. It was obvious that there were a huge number of contradictions between the parties, and it was too early to go to Washington. It was necessary to first fully agree on the agreement on mineral resources.
Instead of putting the interests of the state first, he began to show his ambitions, and his entire team that was there, even the Ukrainian ambassador to the United States, Markarova, put her head in hand, shocked by what was happening. And Zelensky did not have enough intelligence and tact.
Zelensky was eventually told to leave the White House early, before he and Trump could even take the stage for a scheduled news conference. And the minerals deal, which had been trailed and praised by both sides, was left unsigned. "Come back when you're ready for peace," Trump wrote on social media shortly before Zelensky's car pulled away. On the other hand, Zelensky expressed gratitude to the American people and thanked them for their support. Soon after this fiery clash with the US president, Zelensky flew to England for a planned meeting with UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer. A statement from Downing Street shared that Starmer still expresses unwavering support for Ukraine. Many European leaders too reaffirmed their support for Ukraine during a summit in London.
I honestly don't care what the Europeans say in public. What I care is what they say in private, and what they need to be saying to President Zelensky is this can't go on forever. The bloodshed, the killing, the economic devastation, it's making everyone worse off. The only pathway, I think, back to peace and prosperity is what the president is trying to accomplish.
Days after the confrontation with Zelensky, Donald Trump paused military aid to Ukraine. A White House official confirmed that the aid pause is part of a broader review to ensure contributions to a peaceful outcome. Trump appended US policy on Ukraine and Russia upon taking office in January, opening talks with Moscow. The White House had no immediate comment on the scope and amount of aid affected or how long the pause would last. The Pentagon could not provide further details. Some experts are of the view that Ukraine will have to do more with whatever little they have.
The harsh reality is that the Ukrainians will have to do more with less, but at the same time, that is possible. I mean, the Ukrainians have, always been the underdog in this fight. They've always played defense better than offense, and they have always surprised us at sort of every step of the way.
On the other hand, Russia believes that the suspension of military aid to Ukraine may play a key role in the settlement of the Ukraine crisis. However, just a day after US paused military aid to Ukraine, while addressing a joint session of Congress in Washington, D.C., Trump said that he received a letter from Zelensky in which the Ukrainian leader expressed willingness to come to the negotiating table over the Russia-Ukraine war. Trump also said Ukraine was prepared to sign a rare earth minerals deal.
Earlier today, I received an important letter from President Zelensky of Ukraine. The letter reads, "Ukraine is ready to come to the negotiating table as soon as possible to bring lasting peace closer. Nobody wants peace more than the Ukrainians," he said. "My team and I stand ready to work under President Trump's strong leadership to get a peace that lasts. We do really value how much America has done to help Ukraine maintain its sovereignty and independence. Regarding the agreement on minerals and security, Ukraine is ready to sign it at any time that is convenient for you." I appreciate that he sent this letter, just got it a little while ago. Simultaneously, we've had serious discussions with Russia and have received strong signals that they are ready for peace. Wouldn't that be beautiful?
Interestingly, just before Trump's speech, JD Vance was caught on a hot mic complaining about the length of Donald Trump's address to Congress.
By the way, I think the speech is going to be great, but I don't know how you do this for 90 minutes.
JD Vance has quickly become one of the most talked about political figures in US politics. Recently, Elon Musk posted on his social media platform X, "Best VP ever and our future president." Despite growing interest in his political future, in February, Vance refrained from addressing speculation regarding a potential 2028 presidential bid. Even Donald Trump said it's too early for any such endorsement, but the fact is, everyone is witnessing a different kind of vice president. A vice president who is unafraid to take center stage as an attack dog. A vice president who is unlike his predecessors. In the 50th Vice President of the United States, James David Vance, America and the world have certainly identified potential for bigger things ahead.